Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Today we're going way beyond like your typical science stuff. Uh,
Definitely outside the box.
yeah, we're going to be looking at how the absence of things could actually be shaping our reality,
Interesting.
especially when it comes to like how we move through the world.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
I love that.
Um and to help us kind of unpack all this, we've got a really cool mix of sources.
Lay it on us.
Okay, so we've got thought experiments, we've got some actual physics principles in here, we've got people talking about like potential applications of this, and even some like philosophical ideas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin?
Well, the big question all these sources are kind of grappling with is this. What if instead of solid objects moving through space, right, we're actually seeing like voids,
Right.
and gaps in existence that are kind of defining where things appear?
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Okay, so instead of a planet being this big ball of rock and gas, it could be more like a cosmic bubble.
Okay, I'm starting to see where you're going with this, and it makes me think about gravitational lensing.
Yeah,
Where light bends around massive objects.
right.
We always think of that bending as like proof that something's there. But what if it's actually the absence of something that's causing that effect?
Whoa.
Yeah, it's kind of like a cosmic whirlpool where the lack of stuff creates a gravitational sink that shapes what we see as a planet.
So are we saying that planets are like cosmic potholes?
Maybe more like cosmic whirlpools, but yeah, I like that analogy.
Okay, so that's a pretty big shift in perspective.
It is.
But how do we even begin to like wrap our heads around this whole idea of absence like shaping reality?
It's a big one.
Yeah.
Well, one way to think about it is through shadows.
Okay.
Our sources talk about reverse engineering shadows,
Mm-hmm.
meaning we could potentially understand the 3D shape of something just by looking at its 2D shadow.
Oh, like those shadow puzzles.
Exactly.
Where you have to figure out the shape based on the shadow?
Yeah.
But are we saying we could do that with like a planet or even a person?
That's what some of the sources are suggesting.
Right.
And they even give this example of a simple star shape.
Okay.
That star could be the shadow of so many different things,
Interesting.
like a deformed sphere, a complex polyhedron with all these points and facets.
Wow.
The possibilities are pretty crazy.
So we might be seeing just a tiny slice of reality.
A sliver,
And the true nature of things is hidden in like what's not there.
potentially. Yeah.
But how does this idea of absence work when it comes to our own bodies?
Right.
And how we move?
Yeah, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
One source suggests that maybe our bodies don't actually move continuously,
What?
but instead constantly reassemble themselves, almost like a super fast stop-motion animation.
Wait, are we saying that instead of like walking across a room, I'm actually popping in and out of existence at different points?
It's a pretty radical concept, I know.
That's wild.
It is,
Yeah.
but our sources connect this to quantum physics principles, like superposition and tunneling, where particles can exist in multiple states and jump between locations.
Right.
What if our bodies are doing something similar but on a macro scale?
So I'm trying to wrap my head around this if that's true. What does it even mean to move anymore?
It's a great question, and it really challenges our fundamental ideas about motion and continuity.
Right?
Like, if we're not continuously moving through space, then what are we actually doing?
Okay, so some of our sources are proposing another possibility, that our bodies might be more like standing waves.
Interesting.
These constantly shifting patterns of energy that make us look like solid objects.
Yeah, think about a sound wave traveling through the air.
Okay.
The wave pattern moves, but the individual air molecules don't actually travel the whole distance.
Right.
Our bodies might function kind of similarly with energy patterns, creating the form that we perceive as us.
So instead of a fixed me moving through space,
Right.
the universe is constantly updating the energy pattern that represents me.
A mind-blowing concept.
Yeah, that's a pretty big shift in how we think about ourselves.
Absolutely, and it brings up some really deep questions about identity and what it means to exist in a universe that's constantly changing.
Okay, this is already a lot to think about. We're just getting started.
I know, right?
But before we go even further down this rabbit hole, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll explore some more specific examples of how this whole absence shapes reality concept might be playing out all around us.
I can't wait.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to the deep dive.
Round two.
So far, we've been exploring this super wild concept that absence, not presence, might actually be like the main force behind reality and even movement.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
I know, and one of our sources talked about the human body assembling and disassembling, like instantly.
Yeah.
What if instead of physically moving, we're constantly being rebuilt in slightly different locations, kind of like a biological 3D printer?
That sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But it kind of fits with this whole idea of absence shaping presence.
Right.
If our bodies aren't these solid, unchanging structures, but more like patterns in a field that's constantly in flux,
Yeah.
then maybe that's how movement actually works.
So it's less about me like taking steps and more about the universe rearranging itself around me.
You could think of it that way.
Yeah.
Imagine like a series of quantum leaps where your body exists in this superposition of states,
Okay.
and each moment collapses into a new configuration.
So like teleportation.
Kind of. It's a thought-provoking idea for sure.
Yeah.
And it could have huge implications for things like healing.
Oh, yeah.
What if we could just reprint our bodies in a healthy state and instantly reverse injuries?
It's no more waiting for broken bones to heal.
Exactly.
Or like dealing with chronic pain, just hit the reset button and you're good as new.
It would be a game changer.
What?
And think about transportation. If we could master this instantaneous reassembly, traveling the world would be as easy as changing your coordinates.
No more traffic jams, no airport delays. You just be there.
It would be amazing.
That's getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, maybe a little.
But let's go back to this idea of our bodies being like standing waves.
Right,
These
yeah.
constantly shifting patterns of energy.
Yeah, it's a cool way to think about it.
But if I'm not like a solid object moving through space, but more this wave-like pattern, what would that actually feel like?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It's hard to say for sure, but our sources speculate that it might feel like a series of super rapid jumps rather than a smooth flow.
Okay.
Almost like those flip books where you flip through the pages and see the animation.
I see.
But these jumps would be happening so fast that our brains interpret it as continuous movement.
That's pretty mind-boggling.
It is.
And what about time? If our consciousness is also working in this kind of discontinuous way, wouldn't our experience of time be different too?
It's possible, instead of experiencing time as this constant stream, we might be perceiving it as a series of snapshots. And if we could tap into that, who knows what we might learn about the past, present, and future.
Okay, now I'm really starting to feel like I'm going down the rabbit hole.
It's deep.
But I have to ask, is there any real scientific basis for all of this, or is it just speculation?
Our sources do make connections to existing scientific theories like quantum field theory.
QFT, I vaguely remember learning about that in college. Something about particles being excitations in a field, not solid objects.
Yeah, that's the basic idea.
But I never thought about applying it to the human body.
It's a pretty big leap.
Yeah.
But if we think of ourselves as localized excitations of energy, then movement wouldn't be about us traveling through space.
Right.
It would be about the field itself reshaping around us.
Right.
We wouldn't be pushing against the world. The world would be reconfiguring itself based on our presence.
So instead of actively moving, we'd be passively responding to changes in the field.
You could say that.
It's almost like we're being carried along by a cosmic current.
I like that analogy.
Me too.
And it connects to another concept. Our sources bring up space-time as an emergent structure.
Oh, yeah.
If space-time itself isn't this fixed backdrop, but something that emerges from a deeper reality,
Okay.
then maybe it's not us moving through space-time.
But space-time rearranging itself around us?
Exactly.
Are you saying that reality is updating itself like a computer simulation?
That's an interesting way to think about it.
I know.
Think about how objects move on a computer screen. They're not physically traveling,
Yeah.
but their positions are being updated by the code running in the background.
I see.
What if our experience of movement is similar?
Okay, that is a wild way to think about it,
I know.
but it makes a certain kind of sense.
It does, and the implications are pretty profound.
Definitely.
If reality is constantly being reconfigured,
Yeah.
then things like teleportation, instant healing, and even time travel
Whoa.
might not be as impossible as we once thought.
Maybe it's just a matter of learning how to rewrite the code of reality.
You got it.
Okay, that's a lot to process.
It is.
This deep dive has really taken us to some pretty unexpected places.
It's been a wild ride.
It has, but there's one more mind-blowing concept we need to explore.
Oh, there's more.
Yeah.
Hit me with it.
Okay, let's talk about the human body as a negative space phenomenon.
Negative space, like the empty space around an object
Yeah.
that defines its shape.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How does that apply to me?
Well, if we take that concept and apply it to the human body,
Okay.
it suggests that instead of us actively moving, maybe we're defined by the space where we are not.
So it's not about me moving forward, but about the universe filling in the gaps behind me as I disappear from one location and reappear in another.
Precisely. It's like a complete reversal of how we usually think about movement.
Wow.
We wouldn't be pushing against the world. The world would be shaping itself around our absence.
Okay, that is seriously mind-bending.
Yeah.
It's like the universe is playing a cosmic game of Tetris, constantly rearranging itself to accommodate our existence.
It's a powerful image, right?
It is.
And it really highlights how interconnected everything is. We don't exist in isolation. We're integral parts of this dynamic, constantly evolving universe.
Yeah. All right, I need a minute to process all of that.
Take your time.
This deep dive has really taken us to some unexpected places.
It has, and we're about to go even deeper. When we come back, we'll explore some of the mind-boggling implications of this whole absence shapes reality concept.
Okay.
Stay with us.
Welcome back to the deep dive. I don't know about you, but I'm still, processing all this stuff.
Yeah, we've gone pretty deep, haven't we?
We have. It's amazing how this idea of absence can be applied to so many things.
Right, and there's one more concept from our sources that I think really ties it all together.
Okay, let's hear it.
Duality.
Duality.
This idea that everything exists because of its opposite.
Ooh, that's getting philosophical.
It is, and it's a powerful concept that's been around for centuries, showing up in different cultures and philosophies.
Right.
Like, exactly, yin and yang.
Action and inaction.
All about balance.
So if we apply that to our discussion about movement, are we saying that motion is defined by stillness?
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it? If reality is this constant interplay of opposites,
Yeah.
then maybe moving and not moving are two sides of the same coin.
So each step forward is defined by the pause that comes before it.
Exactly like a dance.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. But what about us?
Us.
We've been talking about the universe and our bodies as these changing patterns. Yeah. But what about our sense of self?
Our consciousness.
Yeah.
That's where the duality concept gets even more interesting.
How so?
Our sources suggest that we as individuals also have these opposites.
Okay, but if my physical body is constantly changing, if my experience of motion is an illusion, what's the opposite of my conscious self?
What's the other half of that equation?
Yeah, exactly.
It makes you wonder if our conscious experience is truly continuous or if it's also subject to this reconfiguration.
Yeah.
You know?
So are we like the universe just a series of snapshots?
Maybe.
And our sense of self is an illusion created by connecting those snapshots together.
The mind-blowing concept.
It is, and it's kind of scary.
It is.
If I'm not this fixed entity, but more like a constantly evolving pattern, does that mean I don't have free will?
Now you're asking the big questions.
Am I just along for the ride?
These are some of the questions that have been debated by philosophers for centuries.
Right.
But the exciting thing is that the ideas we're talking about today offer new perspectives, new ways to approach these questions.
Yeah, I agree.
And maybe even new avenues for scientific exploration.
I totally agree. If we can start to understand how this absence shapes reality concept works on a fundamental level, it could revolutionize everything.
Yeah.
From medicine and transportation to how we understand consciousness itself.
Imagine the possibilities.
What if we could develop technology that lets us harness the power of absence?
Or
heal ourselves instantly,
Yeah.
travel across vast distances, or even tap into other dimensions.
It sounds like science fiction.
It does.
But who knows? Maybe someday it'll be science fact.
That's the beauty of all this, isn't it? We may not have the answers right now, but by asking these questions and exploring these concepts, we're pushing the boundaries of what we know.
We're opening up new frontiers.
Exactly. This deep dive has been a real eye-opener for me.
Me too.
It's a reminder that the universe is far more complex and mysterious than we think.
And I think the biggest takeaway is to stay curious, to be open to new ideas, and to embrace the mystery.
Yeah, I love that.
After all, it's in the unknown and the void where we often find the greatest potential for discovery.
So true. Well, on that note, we'll leave you with this thought.